Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in for another Cruise of Smooth. Sorry I hadn't been on much lately. Just been a lot going on. I know I've told you that my wife started a job earlier this year as an essential employee. And there are a lot of upsides to it. There are about 2 downsides to it. The first downside is that I only get to see my wife a couple nights a week, working night shift, and her working days. On a good day, I get to pass her on the road, or even better still, catch her in the driveway before she leaves right when I get home. So I don't get to see my wife very often. I get to see her on the weekends, which means that I don't really want to do anything on the weekends aside from be around my wife. The other thing that is challenging to coordinate is when she was a stay-at-home mom, she handled every bit of the school and doctor appointments and things like that. Well, now she doing great at her job, but she doesn't have the available time off to take to handle stuff like this, so a lot of it falls on me, and I've only got so much. I hadn't been there a huge amount of time. I have by no means maxed out my time off. So I can take unpaid time off to a point, but I really don't enjoy doing that too much. So today my kids are not doing in-person learning yet. So today I had to go over to the school a little early before I left for work for a parent-teacher meeting, just, discussing a few things. I was kind of worried that they were going to run long. They ran like 15 minutes. It took me longer to get up and get ready than it did to do the meeting. So, anyway, I said all that just to basically say that it's just a little bit more hectic for me, and so while I've got thoughts and opinions on stuff, a lot of times it's tough for me to get the recording time because I'm busy coordinating things while I'm driving, making phone calls, setting appointments, etc. Before I get into it, folks, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. If you like what you see, if you got anything that you want my opinion on, even if it's an issue I'm unfamiliar with, I'd be more than happy to do the research. Last night at work, I listened to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. Staying up to speed on news, researching stuff, just whatever. Well, last night at work, going through just like the YouTube recommendations on videos, and one popped up, and I didn't listen to the full show where this was announced, but I had to listen to this clip. Ben Shapiro, a lifelong resident of LA, minus the time that he was in Boston at college, I believe Boston, is out. He's announced that he is moving to Nashville, which is a fantastic city. It ranks up there on my favorite big cities. I love Nashville. I live call it 2.5, 3 hours at a leisurely pace, and I love it. And he got talking about it. He went through kind of the details and discussions that led to the ultimate decision to leave, the having to convince his wife to leave, and on and on and on. Okay. Well, where it gets interesting is he said that he was a little concerned about having to replace a bunch of his staff. He said that, that was, a lot of people that work here are, kind of in the same boat that I'm in, lived here for a long time. They love the climate. They love this, that, and the other. And so he was expecting to have a rather high turnover rate, or a bunch of turnover, when he announced this. He said nothing would have been further from the truth. He said that there's a rather people. Sorry, folks, idiot drivers. That he said that there's a good percentage of his company that shows up at an office every day to go to work. He said there's also another percentage that has always been, working all over from their house or whatever, teleworking, graphic designers, things like that, people that don't necessarily need to be in person to do their job. They can work via email and video conference. So he said that he was worried about having to replace a lot of his in-person employees. I forget the number that he said, but he's not having to replace 15% of his staff. And he was worried about, replacing half. They're moving the company and taking the majority of the employees and all the jobs with them. And he said that he employs, I think he said 75, 80 people in person in LA. And another person that I know that left is Joe Rogan. I actually listened to one of his podcasts, comedian Ron White. I think it was the second one in his new studio in Austin, Texas. And he was, where was I going? Anyway, you've got these two people, and the only reason that people know that these guys have left is for the simple reason that they've got social media following, they've got the ability to get their news, what's important to them, their opinion out. Joe Rogan's got nearly 10 million followers. The Daily Wire's got several million, I forget the exact number, plus his radio show. So that's the reason that they're leaving, is just due to their media and social media presence. So my question is for every Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan, I don't think Joe Rogan employs a bunch of people. I really don't. I know that he drives a lot of local businesses in the comedy area. But I don't think that, Joe Rogan Experience, I think that employs 3, maybe 4 people. I don't think it employs a bunch of people. But for every Joe Rogan who does what he does, who makes what he makes, who gets taxed what he gets taxed, and for every Ben Shapiro who has a small business by classification and who employs people, and both of them having the ability to get their news out that they're leaving, how many other people are there? I don't know. But I would wonder how many people are leaving LA. A buddy of mine at work, he listens to a lot of news at work, same as me, and it gives us something to talk about when we run out of news. Or when we get tired of the insanity, take your pick. But he was telling me that New York this year, I believe, had 15,000 apartments come open. And there's no one in there to rent them again. So you could seriously see some of these massive cities collapse. Frankly, I expect it to, and I expect it to be ugly and bloody. And here's why I say that. Take the landlord who may or may not have his properties paid for, and he's receiving 10, 20, 30% less income due to vacant apartments in his building. And the thing is, they're still going up. I'll tell you something else I found out the other day real quick. It costs nearly $1,000 to rent a U-Haul truck to go from LA to Phoenix. What is this person doing? People are crazy today. Someone went into oncoming traffic on a 2-lane road and waved me around. And they were doing 30 and a 55 earlier. Anyway, to rent a U-Haul to go from LA to Phoenix costs nearly $1,000. To rent that exact same U-Haul to go from Phoenix to LA, just over $200. And that's not a politics thing. That's not a Phoenix is a better place to rent a U-Haul. All that is U-Haul trying to balance out their fleet in locations where they're needed. So that gives you an idea of how many people are heading out. And here's where I was going on, things collapsing. You have a landlord owns an apartment complex, may or may not own it in full, may or may not have a mortgage. But all of a sudden, say he loses 20% of his tenants, well, that's 20% of his business, but that's a 20% dip in income, but he's still got 100% of a building to maintain. So that eats into any profit margin that he may have had, which, being a landlord, I know people that are landlords in the sense that they own houses and they do pretty good. I don't know what it's like on apartments. I don't know how much at the end of the year, after all your expenses are paid, I don't know what there is on the bottom line. I don't. But as more and more people leave, he's going to end up having more and more vacant buildings that could cause an increase in other problems. People breaking into the vacant buildings for squatting or partying or whatever. If he's got a mortgage on the place, he may or may not be able to afford his mortgage. He might get foreclosed on. Then you've got more people. Then does the bank rent out? I don't know. Who's going to buy that building if it's half full? I wouldn't, even if I had the money. And then the tax base is going to get eroded. So you're going to have less money for things such as all the things that the city government provides: food, fire, EMS, police. Don't get me started on that. The road department, and on and on and on and on. California is actually proposing a leaving tax, which after you leave California, you owe, and it's a small percentage, but you owe a percentage of your income for like 10 years after you're out of the state, which I think is insane. So I'll look for these places to devolve rapidly into pretty... If you thought the Bronx or Queens or Hell's Kitchen was rough before, I'll look for it to get very rough very rapidly. If you think the wrong side of LA was rough before, I'll look for it to get very wrong. And I'm not talking the riots and protests. I'm talking gang-related crime, violence, murders. Because here's the thing. Even if everything that's happened in the past 6 months that caused all this wasn't violent, you could have massive defunding of police just due to people leaving. Guess what? That means not only less street cops writing tickets for speeding, that also means less cops on the narcotics task force, on the gang violence task force, on you name it. So I'll look for this to get, in big cities, to get ugly quickly. And the one thing that I'm hoping beyond all hope is that the people that leave these cities that, you know, may or may not have, that either didn't vote to stop it or voted for these public officials who propose these insane policies that got things to this place. I hope that they do not let it happen again where they move to. Never been to Austin, Texas. I've heard it's a great city. I've loved Nashville. I will drive down to Nashville on a whim to go to a music club. No lie. I love going to Nashville. Love it, love it, love it. It's not a long drive. It's a pretty drive. You get to go down, from where I'm at, you go down I-65, and right after you cross the state line, there's a decent sized hill you go down, and right at the top of it, you can see quite a long ways off. Beautiful drive. Where I like to go is the Bluebird Cafe. That's my spot. Go to Bluebird Cafe, sit in there on a singer-songwriter night, listen to some live music. It's fantastic. But I hope that they don't ruin the cities that they're fleeing to by electing insane people with insane policies over and over and over again, or not voting and letting other people keep electing insane people forwarding insane policies. So I think that a lot of the politics that have governed big cities for years are about to have a day of reckoning. I remember one of the biggest exoduses, if that's such a word, exodus, whatever. Okay, I remember the biggest exodus from the county that I used to live in. Wasn't brought on by public policy of elected officials. Wasn't brought on by... Ooh, tree. Down in the road. Wasn't brought on by public policy. Wasn't brought on by a tax increase. You know what it was? We were next door to a military base. And they took a ton of people out. They reformed this, that, or the other. I don't remember that. 2010, I think. Base Realignment Activities Campaign, BRAC is what it was. I don't remember the acronym, I just remember it was BRAC. And it caused a huge influx in the housing market. And I used to work in the school systems at the time, and we were like shoehorning kids into school buses because they came in middle of the year. We didn't have time to get new buses. We didn't have time to adjust routes or anything. It was a nightmare in certain areas. Well, because the federal government spends all money wisely, they did that, and then like within 10 years they undid what they did. And so the housing market took a bit of a hit because, okay, when you've got 10,000 people moving into the area, and there was a couple counties right in that area, so it wasn't all in one county. But when you've got 10,000 people coming in, housing's going to be in demand, there's going to be a jump in price. Just basic economics. Well, the housing market took a hit after that because they took those 10,000 people out and brought back the people that had been moved and blah, blah, blah. So it was a huge mess. It really was. But it was literally taking Army soldiers from base to base, and that's what caused the biggest influx and exodus out of that county, in my knowledge, in my lifetime. So I think it's going to be, I hope it's pretty telling to some of these insane politicians that keep proposing insane policies that lead to these insane results. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Everybody stay safe. Thanks for tuning in for another cruise with Smooth. Hope y'all doing okay. Take care. I'll see you next time.